Today on the Dugs, we're going to continue our Franchise Cup by simulating what a matchup between the all-time Padres, Red Sox, Orioles, and Blue Jays would look like, but we're also going to tell you about hiring yourself a secret agent to negotiate your contracts, what the baseball equivalent of collecting a paycheck for supervising a construction for the mob is, what an ultimate grand slam is aside from a secret menu item at Denny's that will take 5 years off your heart health, and much, much more. My second favorite spoken line comes from Shakira, and I quote, "Lucky that my breasts are small and humble, so you don't confuse them with mountains." However, my favorite line is, "The Dugs have uploaded a new video." Welcome back to the Dugs, where everything we do is an excuse to tell a lot of baseball stories and a lot of jokes. This is part of a continuing series, though each video is standalone enough that you can jump right in if you want to. That said, if you'd like to start from the beginning, check out the Franchise Cup playlist. Let's get into it. It's only game one for the Red Sox, but I'd say the pressure is already on, particularly in this first game against the Blue Jays. A stacked team makes Boston one of the expected front-runners of the tourney, and meanwhile, the Blue Jays are in fact from Canada, a country the major leagues hate so much that when Toronto won back-to-back championships in 1992 and 93, and the Montreal Expos were well on their way to dominating 1994, the MLB was forced to make up a strike to cancel the postseason instead of suffering a north-of-the-border dynasty. Put on your tinfoil hats, we're going in. This could be the Red Sox's biggest test as the Blue Jays throw Roy Halladay, but we've also seen what the Red Sox pitcher can do in Season 2 of the experimental baseball tournaments, as Smokey Joe Wood joined the rotation of the Tucson Too-Soons, a gathering of players whose career ended prematurely. He Joey smoked the competition, redeeming the lackluster means in which his pitching career ended, slipping on the grass and apparently breaking his fall exclusively with his thumb as if it were a lawn dart, a faux pas he just never recovered from. Blue Jays aren't intimidating. They're already up 1-0 here in the second, and this is Bichette with an RBI single to make it 2-0. Roy Halladay is not having any of those issues as he's out of the third without surrendering a run as Mookie Betts closes the frame on a ground out. He cannot keep a clean sheet in the fourth. Sever my head and freeze dry my body in a can because Ted Williams goes yard and cuts the lead in half. Red Sox aren't content to just leave it there, however. Nomar stands on second with 2 outs with Wade Boggs at the plate, and Boggs lines a single and gives Garciaparra the chance to score. But no! Vernon Wells unleashes an absolute laser to keep the Blue Jays in the lead. These days, a large part of Vernon's life is dedicated to the winery that he started up with catcher Chris Iannetta, which goes by the name of Jack Winery. I couldn't find many reviews online about their wines, but I did turn up a description of their Cabernet as being white, dry, and nutty. Wait, no, I'm sorry. That was how the website described Chris Iannetta. Jack Winery is not to be confused with fellow Napa winery Plump Jack Winery, which is the one he started up with Bartolo Colon. Joe Wood gets his revenge on Vernon by striking him out as part of a string of 4 consecutive Ks, but the Blue Jays get to him again in the 5th. The bookend of a 2-out rally sees Josh Donaldson doubling to score Roberto Alomar to make it 3-1, and Donaldson's not done there. It's the same score in the 7th, and Josh takes Wood deep for a 2-run shot, making it 5-1. That is the score in the 9th. Halladay comes out after an excellent outing, going 8 innings and only surrendering a single run. Mark Eichhorn comes in and easily retires the first 2 batters, but we're not done yet. Singles by Nomar and Boggs put runners on first and second to bring John Valentin to the plate. Blue Jays lose faith in Eichhorn and bring in Tom Henke, and Valentin is Boston baked it. We have a 1-run ball game. Lynn walks next, which will put the tying run on first for Rico Petrocelli, but that is a flyout, and Toronto can exhale as they hold on to win 5-4. That's a fantastic win, but I don't know, kind of an excessive celebration there? Sheesh. Well, when the Leafs are your NHL team, you take the wins where you can get them. You have to give it to Roy Halladay. Without those stellar 8 innings, the incompetence of the Jays bullpen may have cost them this first game, but as it stands, the Blue Jays will hang a loss on what has to be considered their toughest opponent in the group. Let's see who joins them with a win out of the gate, as our 2 other Group D teams are the Padres and the Orioles. Our pitching matchup here is the Padres' Jake Peavy against the Orioles' Mike Mussina, and Peavy looks like he's happy to be back in professional baseball. Here he is closing out the second inning by striking out Manny Machado. That's already his 5th strikeout, and he has set down some big names so far, including Ripken Jr. and Eddie Murray. Mussina holds serve, but when the 3rd inning rolls around, it's time to fire up the dating apps because we're about to meet a whole lot of singles brought to you by a whole lot of people that I'd be misrepresenting if I said that they actually existed. Bip Roberts, single. Dave Winfield, single. Adrian Gonzalez, single. Phil Nevin, single. And like that online date that you took to the questionable Indian place, this single is bringing home the runs. 2 to be exact, and so it's 2-0 Padres. And that might be enough for the Padres because, like the worst Wheel of Fortune player ever, Peavy keeps insisting on the K. This is Brady Anderson striking out to close the 5th, and that represents Peavy's 11th strikeout through 5 innings. Although strikeouts are a lot of work, though. Jake starts to show a little wear in the 6th when Chris Hoiles takes him deep for a solo shot, and the 2-run lead is halved. At 101 pitches, Peavy has to come out in the 7th, and Joey Hamilton comes in relief. Fun fact about Joey, he was absolutely thrilled to be drafted out of high school, but when he found out it was the Orioles that drafted him, he decided that he was in fact a college man. After a couple of years, the Padres ended up drafting him the 2nd time, though he refused to sign a contract for a spell. The Padres were actually taken off guard by the fact that he was represented by Scott Boras, which apparently was a bit of a secret. The Padres GM at the time stated that, basically, he lied to us. We had no idea. That's why half the time you don't know who he represents. Scott Boras is very good at that. His clients are very good about keeping their mouths shut. The GM was forced to retract his comments when Boras threatened to sue, so he did retract them, and the retraction was extremely effective, as evidenced by the fact that I'm on my 2nd bourbon and repeating this easily found fact to you right now. I think that actually makes Scott Boras a secret agent, and he's got a license to overcharge you for that stud that's going to fall apart 4 years before their contract expires. Hamilton gets off to a rough start as there are runners on 1st and 2nd in the 7th, and Brady Anderson rips a single into center field. Don Buford has his eyes on scoring, but absolutely not. That is Mark Kotze in center field, gunning him down and preserving the 1-run lead. Tony Gwynn pays that fine effort off and gives the Padres a 2-run cushion, and that is more than enough for Trevor Hoffman, who comes in the 9th and collects the save as he gets Nick Markakis to ground out for the 3rd out. So the Padres will join the Blue Jays at 1-0 to start the group. The story was the pitching in this low-scoring game. We've talked about Peavy's 11 Ks, but Mussina put up a hell of an effort as well, going 8 innings and only surrendering 2. The O's just couldn't get anything going offensively, highlighted by the 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts and 3 men left on base that Manny Machado brought to the table. Coming off that loss, the Orioles have an all-important game against their fellow 0-1 starters and the Red Sox in Game 2. Standing on the mound is bad news, though, in Pedro Martinez. Or maybe not. When's the last time you thought hard about Chris Hoiles? Well, you're welcome. This is a solo shot to start the 2nd and start the scoring. And it's not even his final form. Well, only because he devolved, which... Okay, look, I had a roommate that tried to explain Dragon Ball Z to me in college, and apparently none of it took. Anyhow, Hoiles is one of 23 Major League hitters to have hit what is termed an ultimate grand slam. This is a grand slam that occurs in the bottom of the 9th inning when trailing by 3. He's only one of 2 players to achieve the feat with 2 outs and a full count. Hoiles clearly lives for the big moment, as this is his 2nd homer of the Cup. The lead is short-lived, however, as Nomar Garciaparra ties it up in the bottom of the 3rd with this double. This gives Pedro the opportunity to take a breath and settle down. After getting into that early trouble, he hasn't given up much. Since that home run, he's only given up 1 hit and struck out an additional 4 batters. Make that 5, as this is Paul Blair striking out to close the 5th. The Red Sox pull ahead, but in the 6th, Ripken Jr. proves that the Orioles aren't just going to roll over. The Iron Man takes him Robert Downey Town. That's a 2-run home run off of Pedro and makes it 3-2 Orioles. But Nomar ain't having it. He says he sees your Iron Man claim and will raise you a groin that tears if anyone in the same room as him sneezes too hard. He's already reached 1st and his groin's looking just fine. Not that I was looking too closely. First, he steals 2nd, then he steals 3rd. That hustle pays off when John Valentine grounds into a fielder's choice and we're all tied up. And if that didn't break their spirit, later that inning, Carlton Fisk creates the most comfortable cushion of the game. This is a 3-run home run to put the Sox up 3, and they would not look back. In the end, it proves to be a 6-run win for the Red Sox, and the Orioles are in a whole lot of trouble. We're going to jump straight into the Blue Jays and Padres, where we're already knotted up at 2, and Brian Giles unknots him. There was a man on as well, so that'll put the Padres ahead 4-2. Hadn't thought about Brian Giles in a minute, so I took a look at what he's gotten up to, and it was not pretty. I was met with an epic about domestic abuse flying in both directions, a miscarriage, a fight over a $100,000 engagement ring, and after that torrent of awfulness, Wikipedia decided to cap the whole thing off with Giles losing his endorsement with Nair hair removal. Have a sense of story development, Wikipedia. Fast forward to the 5th. The Blue Jays have already tied the thing back up, and this single by George Bell brings home 2 more. Today's starters are the Blue Jays' Juan Guzman, who absolutely did not need any Nair in the late 90s, and Chris Davis for the Padres, who I had not realized had become part of the establishment. The man, if you will. In 2020, he took over for Joe Torre's job of enforcing disciplinary action across the league, and is now playing GM with the Texas Rangers. Thus far, he's racked up a record of 128 wins and 196 losses. That's That's embarrassing, Chris. But perhaps not as embarrassing as the continued Blue Jay onslaught in the 6th. Randy Jones comes in to quote-unquote relieve Chris Young, but the beating continues. A single by Jose Bautista makes it 7-4. A Vernon Wells double makes it 8-4, and when the 6th is all said and done, a sac fly gave him the 9-4 advantage. Don't worry though, Juan Guzman is mid-bed defecation as well. Terry Kennedy takes him deep for a 3-run home run. I haven't seen a blast like that out of the Kennedys since... oh, never mind, they've been through enough. The Padres aren't done. Later that inning, a Dave Winfield single makes it 9-8, and believe it or not, an Adrian Gonzalez sac fly makes it 9-9. Through 6, a collective 18 runs have been scored. Things do eventually slow down, as that is our score entering the 9th. The Blue Jays get the first good chance at wrapping this one up. Padres' Heath Bell is shooting to be the crowning rat corpse on the top of this dumpster fire of a pitching performance. He says you only think you've seen bad pitching so far, but here we find ourselves with the bases loaded on account of his 2 walks and a hit batsman, and Joey Bats comes up in a clutch situation. That single scores 2, and that will be enough to bring this shootout to its logical conclusion as Tom Henke is able to close it out in the bottom half for the Jays. This thing was a mess, but amidst the crappy pitching, there must be some offensive callouts. Jose Bautista was as clutch as expected, going 2 for 4 with 2 walks, driving in 3, including the go-ahead runs in the 9th, and scoring twice. I had a feeling the Padres would have preferred 8 Tony Gwynns in their lineup, and today did not dissuade me from that idea, as he went 4 for 5 with 2 runs and a double in a losing effort. So, our situation is a simple one. The Blue Jays have already clinched the top slot in the group and will simply be playing for seeding while the Orioles have sadly been eliminated. The second ticket out of the qualifiers will be granted to the winner of the Padres-Red Sox game. Before we get into that, however, I'd like to bring back our tradition of featuring channels with far more subscribers than us. Today we look at Dan Leggymail, who is a self-described balloon fetishist. The majority of his videos involve him blowing up balloons, laughing maniacally, and... oh, actually, that's the end of my notes. Apparently that's it. Huh. For his efforts, he's racked up over 3,000 subscribers to my 480. If you enjoy what you're watching today, don't let the dogs disappear into the weird shadow of popping balloons and giggling, and get yourself a free subscription, hit the thumbs up, and let us know what you want to see more of on this channel in the comments, as that's going to help others find out about us. Back to the tourney. I know there's Orioles fans on this channel, so we're going to see if they can redeem themselves from their prior 2 losses and go out with a silver lining on their pink slip. To do so, they'll have to take down the undefeated Blue Jays, but looky here, Eddie Murray kicks them off with the first inning home run. In the second inning, Don Buford connects for a 2-run home run. No surprise there. There's overachievers, and then there's this guy. Some baseball players slide into obscurity post-retirement, others end up posting on Twitter. Don's become an orthopedic surgeon of great renown. He actually planted the seeds for it early. Upon graduating from USC, after starting off at Stanford for the first 2 years, of course, he signed his first professional baseball contract and then figured, hey, I'll probably have some free time. So he also enrolled at UCLA Medical School at the same time. Buford can lay claim to the 3rd largest orthopedic Instagram and was voted 6th best orthopedic YouTube channel. What the am I doing with my life? Well, anyhow, back to the game. We missed Cal Ripken Jr. adding a sac fly, but here's Eddie Murray singling to make it 5-0. The Blue Jays get one back, but that matters little as Manny Machado goes for a 3-run home run off of Marcus Stroman. You know what they say, better late than never. Unless it's in the case of a 3-game round robin and you've already been mathematically eliminated. I guess then late and never are about the same. Oh well. The Orioles close things out on a high note anyhow. Here's Jim Palmer racking up his final strikeout of the day on Bo Bichette. Palmer had a fine day, going 7 innings and surrendering only 1 run with 8 strikeouts, out-dueling his opposite number in Toronto's Dave Stieb. Manny Machado got an additional 2 hits on top of the home run we showed you, and was not retired, going 3 for 3. But let's get to our main event. Winner moves on, loser goes home in this coast-to-coast matchup of Boston and San Diego. As a throwback to our dollar store legends from a few weeks ago, as Clemmy Rockets takes the mound for the Red Sox. Not long after, Mark Kotsay takes him yard for 2 runs, and it's the Padres out to an early 2-0 lead in the second. Checking out his history, Kotsay is one of those players offered a quality assurance coach position, which I assumed was the equivalent of Tony Soprano setting up his goons as construction contractors. Well, I finally looked into the position and found out that it's actually a pretty recent creation. Its origin credited to Joe Madden in 2007. The number of statistics available to coaches and those that need tracking had become somewhat of a mess in the 21st century, so apparently the role of QA coach was in charge of making that all get sorted out. That did raise the question for me why the role kept on being handed to former players and not the type of people who got together to discuss their favorite brand of clipboard. Apparently the job of QA manager was to be the go-between between the data monkeys and the players, taking complicated math equations and boiling them down to...
Tyson, if you know how to cheat, now's the time to start. All right.
They also help out coaches on various other tasks like watching replays on the fly and signaling to the coach when things should be challenged. The more you know. Fourth inning and I'm starting to sweat, honestly. We've already knocked out some large market teams, so I'm not really doing the channel many favors if the Red Sox get knocked out as well. In the bottom of the fourth, Boston's Carlton Fisk hands me some antiperspirant with this RBI single, and Rico Petrocelli slathers me up with an RBI single of his own. I probably should have stuck to bourbon and left the gummies alone this video, but we've come too far to re-record, and why would I want to? I am completely secure in my self-image, and this is a John Valentine single breaking the tie. 3 unanswered runs put the Red Sox up 1. It's 4-2 in the bottom of the 6th, and the Red Sox are on the verge of putting this one away with the bases juiced. Fred Lynn has a big stick and a blender for making smoothies. That is a grand slam, and that all but does it for the Red Sox, putting them up 8-2. It's worth noting that Roger Clemens came around in the end after giving up the early home run. He's still around to close things out in the 8th with a strikeout of Phil Nevin. The Red Sox win and advance rather easily after an early scare. Clemens ends his day with 12 totally clean and unenhanced strikeouts. It was Fred Lynn with the big blow, but Carlton Fisk concluded his nice qualifier with his 3rd home run of the tourney, going 4 for 4, while Carl Yastrzemski also escaped being retired with a 3 for 3 2-run performance of his own. That dominant win is going to put the Red Sox in really good shape as we take a look at our updated tourney standings. Last chance to turn back before I spoil the earlier results. Check out our playlist if you'd rather watch the videos in order. Okay, we good? Boston ends up at the top of the pile of second place teams, meaning they're all but guaranteed to move on to the next round without factoring into the 2 play-in games. The bottom 4 will have to go through. I didn't see the Blue Jays as the winner of this group, but Roy Halladay held the Red Sox off with a fantastic pitching performance in their head-to-head matchup, and thus will be guaranteed a spot in the next round. That's gonna do it for us today. Please consider subscribing, liking the video, and commenting to help the Dugs become a thing. When we come back, my best guess is that we'll be continuing this series, bringing you Group E, which features the Reds, Astros, Rangers, and Expos. Get out your 10-gallon hats and concealed carry permits. We're going to bear witness to the Battle of Texas. As always, I've been Johnny Paprika, hoping all of your balls are fair and all of your wood is good. Good night, everybody.